They say faith is foolish, a crutch for weak minds, until you are the one in need of a miracle. Imagine ridiculing someone's prayers one day and desperately needing those very same prayers the next. Welcome to the story of a man who thought prayer was a joke until life punched him harder than he ever imagined. This is the tale of mockery and miracles. Let's begin at the beginning, where there was a man and his wife. Ah, yes, Samantha and Benjamin. 2 names, 2 lives, 2 faiths. Or should I say 1 faith and 1 lack thereof. You see, Samantha was a woman of deep faith, the kind who found solace in prayer, who saw God in every sunrise and heard his voice in every whisper of the wind. Benjamin, well, he was cut from a different cloth, a man of science, of logic. He saw the world through the lens of reason. To him, faith was a fairy tale, a comforting lie that some people clung to. Their love story, however, was like any other. They met, they fell in love, they married, and they vowed to stay together, richer, poorer, in sickness and in health. But their unity was only skin deep. Beneath the surface lay a chasm, a divide as wide as their contrasting beliefs. For Benjamin, Samantha's prayers were an annoyance, a discordant note in the symphony of their life. He would roll his eyes, mock her quiet talks with the divine, and brush it off as wishful thinking. Samantha, though, never let his jests deter her. She continued to pray, her faith as steadfast as the northern star. In the quiet of their home, while Benjamin slept, Samantha would get up, her steps soft as a whisper. She would kneel beside their bed, her face buried in her hands. There she would pour out her heart to God, asking for his blessings, seeking guidance, and most importantly, praying for her husband's soul. She prayed for his heart to see the light, for his mind to understand the solace that faith offered. She didn't pray out of desperation, but out of love. Love for a man who didn't believe. Love for a heart that was lost, and love for a soul that needed to be saved. Years went by. They grew old together, yet their differences remained. Benjamin, more and more engrossed in his work, more and more skeptical of faith, and Samantha deeper in her devotion, stronger in her belief, and more fervent in her prayers. Through it all, she kept praying for him, even when he scoffed, even when he mocked, even when he doubted. She never wavered. Then came the day that changed everything. A day that shattered Benjamin's world and brought him face to face with the reality of his disbelief. It happened quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and with a vengeance. Imagine, if you can, that you have always dismissed something, always ignored it, always ridiculed, and then it comes back to haunt you, to challenge everything you have ever believed in. That was what happened to Benjamin. He had always dismissed faith as a weakness. He had always ignored prayer as a futile attempt to alter fate. He had always ridiculed belief as a delusion of the powerless. But now, staring into the abyss of his own mortality, he realized the folly of his ways. It was as if the universe had taken a personal vendetta against him, twisting the knife of irony deep within his heart. His illness came upon him with the stealth of a shadow, striking him down when he was least prepared. It was not a gradual decline that could have been anticipated, but a sudden, unexpected assault that left him vulnerable and afraid. He was a man who prided himself on his strength, on his ability to control his world, on his power to shape his future. But now, faced with the fragility of his existence, he felt like a helpless child in the grip of an indifferent universe. It was at this moment of his greatest need that he remembered Samantha's prayers, the ones he had scoffed at, the ones he had mocked, the ones he had dismissed. They echoed in his ears, not as a taunt, but as a lifeline. He remembered how she would find solace in prayer, how she would seek guidance from the divine, how she would pour out her heart to God. And in that moment of desperation, he wished he had listened to her, wished he had shared her faith, wished he had not spent a lifetime ridiculing her beliefs. As he lay there grappling with his pain and fear, he started praying, not because he had faith, but because he had nothing else to lose. It wasn't a prayer born out of reverence or respect. It was a prayer born out of desperation and need. It wasn't a prayer that spoke of gratitude or hope. It was a prayer that begged for mercy and sought for help. But in that brokenness, in that rawness, in that utter surrender, there was a purity, a sincerity that resonated with the heavens. This is the part where most stories would give him an easy out, a quick fix, a swift recovery that would tie everything up neatly. But life, as it often does, throws curveballs. Benjamin's recovery was not a walk in the park. It was a hard-fought battle, a grueling struggle, a testament to the tenacity of both his spirit and his will to live. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and throughout it all, Samantha was by his side, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually too. She stood by his bedside, not as a triumphant, but as a loving wife, offering comfort, care, and continuous prayers. She didn't gloat over his suffering. She didn't triumph in his misfortune. She suffered with him, hoping for his recovery. The doctors were baffled by his condition. They tried their best, but even their skills and knowledge were not enough to diagnose or treat the ailment that was slowly eating away at him. Benjamin, who was once a staunch believer in science, who placed his faith in medicine and technology, was now forced to confront the limitations of human understanding and intervention. He was stripped bare, exposed, and utterly dependent on forces beyond his control. But amidst this despair, a miracle occurred, a miracle that defied medical explanation, a miracle that resonated with the depths of Benjamin's soul. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic event, but a series of small, inexplicable occurrences that gradually unfolded, weaving together a tapestry of hope and healing. First, there was the doctor's visit. Dr. Miller, who had been scratching his head over Benjamin's case for weeks, suddenly announced that he had made a breakthrough. He had figured out a rare, almost forgotten treatment that might work. Then there was the financial aid that arrived unexpectedly. Benjamin's treatment was expensive, but just when they needed it the most, an old family friend remembered them and sent a substantial amount, more than enough to cover the cost. And finally, there was the turn in Benjamin's condition. After weeks of steady decline, there was a halt, a pause in the progression of his illness, and then slowly, miraculously, he started to improve. It was as if someone had intervened, guiding the hands of doctors, influencing the heart of a benefactor, and healing his body. As Benjamin looked at Samantha, now frail and weak from years of worry and her own health issues, he saw not a saint, but a warrior who had fought not just for his soul, but for his life itself. He realized that all those years of ridicule were just that, mere moments of pride and ignorance. In reality, it was Samantha who had been the rock, the steady force that had held him and their relationship together. Benjamin's mockery of Samantha's faith was no longer a point of contention. It was a memory of his foolishness. His disbelief, once a wall between them, now lay in shattered fragments at his feet. He had seen the power of prayer, the strength of faith, and the depth of Samantha's love. In the quiet moments as he watched Samantha sleeping, he would trace the lines on her face, each line telling a story of their shared life together, of the joys, the sorrows, the prayers, and the unwavering love that had bound them together. He marveled at the woman he had loved for so long, the woman he had taken for granted, the woman who had never stopped praying for him, even when he had scoffed, even when he had doubted, even when he had rejected her faith. He knew then that he couldn't take her love and sacrifice for granted anymore. He owed her not just gratitude, but reverence, respect, and a commitment to understand her world, the one he had spent a lifetime denying. Benjamin's journey is a reminder for all of us who doubt the power of faith, who dismiss the importance of prayer, and who underestimate the strength of a loving heart. It tells us that no matter how strong we think we are, no matter how much we rely on our intellects or our abilities, there are forces at play that are beyond our understanding and control. It also teaches us the value of empathy, the need to respect and understand beliefs that differ from our own, and the importance of cherishing those who stand by us through our darkest hours. In the end, it's not about winning arguments or proving points. It's about living a life filled with love, understanding, and mutual respect. So remember, just like Benjamin, we might scoff at things we don't understand, but that doesn't mean they're not real or powerful. And sometimes, like Benjamin, we might need to open our hearts and minds to see the truth. As for Benjamin and Samantha, they lived out their days in peace. He never became the devout believer she was, but he did become a man who respected her faith, cherished her love, and honored her memory. The miracle of his life was not just in the healing, but in the humbling, not in the cure, but in the change of heart. And perhaps that was the greatest miracle of them all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below with your thoughts, experiences, or any stories you'd like us to tell next. We love hearing from you and look forward to bringing you more heartwarming tales. Until then, stay blessed.